Pawn shop employees of Reddit. What is something people think is collectible or worth a lot of money, but is actually relatively worthless? State quarters full set. So many grandmas think a full book with all the state quarters there are priceless. Worth exactly as much as 50x.25. Especially because, at least in the city I lived in, when I was collecting them, you could go to the bank and specifically purchase a specific state's quarter. I have the mint set for the state quarters. It's worth like $1 more. Pawn shop employee here. Just a friendly reminder that no one wants to buy your great grandmother's china set. Silverware at the same time. Almost all of it is just plated. And even 90% silver is not worth much unless you've got some weight. My family is in a weird position right now because both sets of my grandparents and one of my great aunts left their huge sets of fine silverware to my parents, and my parents have their own set of silverware they got when they got married. My brother and I are going to inherit 2 sets of silverware each. I'm planning on getting married in like a year and a half if things go well, and who fucking knows if anyone in my boyfriend's huge, traditionally minded, super Catholic family is going to give us his silverware set. I wouldn't put it past them. He's also the oldest child of his family and oldest grandchild, so there's a solid chance he could inherit a set as well. Jewelry, especially diamond rings. Yeah, you paid thousands. It's worth considerably less. Langabaja baskets. The next state over there is a now defunct basket making company whose HQ is a giant basket. They were a thing for a while, similar to Beanie Babies, until the bottom fell out of the market. People were buying these things as a long-term investment, but they are practically worthless now. People think they still have value. Heh, bottom fell out of the basket market. Don't put all your eggs in the basket market. Don't put basket all in the market. Eggs. Baseball autographs after like 1935. Willie Mays, Ted Williams, Mickey Mantle. Yeah, they signed thousands of things. Often lowers values of their cards. Ike. Derek Jeter came to my elementary school when I was in 4th grade and we lined up to walk out of the auditorium so he could sign a baseball card that they issued to every one of us. I had no clue who he was and cared nothing for baseball, so I just walked past him. I sometimes wonder if that was a bad move on little 10-year-old diorama backquotes part, but I feel a little better knowing it wouldn't actually be worth anything today. I have a signed Jeter card from his high school team. I'm told it's worth a couple of bucks. Ken Griffey Jr.'s rookie card, Michael Jordan's rookie baseball card, apparently not worth the card stock they were printed on. The entirety of the Topps baseball cards from the year I was born, never seen the light of day. $25. I sell things online, and one thing people never seem to understand is that just because you paid a certain amount for something doesn't mean it's actually worth anywhere near that. Even worse, often they think it's worth more than they paid for it because they are just that savvy. In the auto industry you see it with truck guys all the time. Some jackass goes out and buys the biggest truck they can find, but the payments eat them alive. So a year later they're at a dealer trying to get out of it. Yeah, its sticker price is $56,000, but I got it for $40,000. Great deal. Our used car manager says he will give you $32,000. Man, that's crazy. That's a $56,000 truck. Then you find out they were hoping to get $52,000 for it because someone would have to pay $56,000 brand new. It's like, no, they'd pay $40,000 brand new, you know that, because that's what you paid. And that's brand new, not a 6-month-old truck with a dented driver door and 12,000 miles. Shit, I had one kid come in with this 25-year-old Chevy truck in rough shape and a broken odometer. He told me how he bought it for $750. He was offered $750 for it, and he was insulted because it was at least worth $3,000. Fine art. Every once in a while, someone finds an old master drawing, etc. in their attic, but for the most part it's mostly junk by amateurs. Also, just because family law claims a painting is by such and such a person, without concrete documentation, that claim is worthless. Fine. I won't show you my great grandmother's prized sculpture by Michelangelo she picked up in Japan on her honeymoon. Michelangelo-san. Pawn shop employee here. There's a lot but one that stands out to me right now are watches. Brands like Fossil, Michael Kors, Citizen, etc. cost you over $100 at stores like Masses, but we typically sell them for about $40, even in like new condition. When something goes from new to used, the value of said item goes down a lot. I made this mistake when I was younger. I got a great deal on a Seiko dive watch and decided to turn around and pawn it. When I handed it to the employee, he took a deep breath and explained to me what retail markup is and what makes some watches more valuable than others. He even took out some Rolex and other expensive watches he had behind the counter and explained why they were heavy, the different types of movement, how they worked, etc. It must have been a slow day because he spent about an hour teaching me about watches. Really cool guy. I went to a Rolex store once just to gawk. There were no real customers, so the sales guy was just talking about the different aspects of nice watches. He pulled out a $30,000 Rolex with a meteorite dial and put it on my wrist so I could feel the weight. I was so anxious having something that valuable on me that I just stood there awkwardly with my arm frozen out in front of me until he took it back. Same. Except the watch he put on me was $67K. I didn't even ask to see it, wasn't dressed nice, honestly was dressed like a hobo compared to how people typically dress at that mall. But I guess you don't make sales if you make assumptions instead. The Silicon Valley software engineer look, very nice. Not exactly this but similar. I worked in a used bookstore for years. We offered cash and store credit for trade-ins. So many people couldn't grasp that if we are selling a book for $3, it meant we would buy it for way less than that. They'd haul in a box of trash expecting a grand payday. They also didn't understand that a book being a mega bestseller or on an opera list or made into a movie years ago made it less valuable for us. If 10 mil people bought the book in 2012, then 2 mil have probably already traded this in, and the other 8 mil still have it and aren't likely to buy more copies. No, you aren't getting $10 for the Da Vinci Code because we have 2 shelves full of copies selling for $6 each right over there. This is how I learned about economy. My grandmother was best friends with a used bookstore owner and Harlequin reader, and I spent many a summer days in the bookstore learning about this market. Okay, so maybe you can help me answer this then. The Harlequin ladies would come in like clockwork every couple weeks. They'd buy a dozen of them and trade the dozen they got last time in for credit. Couple weeks later, bring back the last batch they bought to get credit toward their next batch. Why did they not just use libraries? Our local libraries absolutely carried Harlequin. It just seemed like a more expensive library service for them. Their credit never equaled their cost, so they were spending money each time. Most second-hand electric guitars are significantly less expensive than they are when brand new, even if it is a major brand like Gibson or Fender. People would get offended at the offers we would make them because they didn't understand what a retail markup is, and they didn't realize that most guitars lose 50% of their value the moment you purchase them. I'm a guitar and watch nerd. In both markets it's critical to buy used. There are so many nice used guitars and watches that can be bought, enjoyed for a few years, then sold for what you paid for them, that it's pointless to buy new. No shit, you're gonna lose money. Not a pawn shop employee, but I flipped things, and one thing that a lot of people misunderstand is comic books. They're usually not worth more than a couple bucks, unless you go really far back, like 50s/early 60s. Even then they need to be in excellent condition. A few scuffs around the edges and a bit of fading can easily make a $1,000 book worth $50. When I was a kid and read comics, I was really into Spawn. I started reading it right when it first came out. A year later a first print of Spawn #1 was worth $300 to $400. My friends and I all had them and thought we would be rich in 20 years when it would be worth thousands. Now it is worth maybe $20 if it is in very good condition. I have a friend who has about 2,000 comics from the 1980s when we were kids. He planned to sell them and pay off his house. After pricing them all out, he found out about 95% of them are worth $1 or less. Well, that is a month's rent at least. If I remember correctly, once he had all of them priced out, the total value was around $4,000, which isn't bad for a bunch of comics you bought back in the 80s and just kept in boxes, but he thought they would be worth $100,000.